Hello my friends, welcome back to another slower flow. This one is another cocoa flow, which is a type of class I've come up with, which is really sweet and slow, just like you were drinking a hot chocolate next to the fire. In particular, this one is yin style. So we're going to be holding postures for a couple of minutes, which is going to really help us tap into our parasympathetic nervous system. In particular, we're focusing on the hips and the spine. If you did have a bolster to bring in, feel free to do so because we will be using it a little bit. But if you didn't have one, that's totally fine as well. You can do everything without a bolster. Okay, we're going to get started on the side of the body. Also, feel free to bring in a hot drink as well. That can be really nice for your practice. So if you did have a bolster, just line it up with the side of your body. Left side of the body is going to be down. Bring your right knee onto the bolster, and the left arm can be underneath the head in whatever way feels good. Right arm can be wherever feels comfortable. So this is kind of like a half fetal position here. And when it feels good for you, you can start to close down the eyes. Indicating a change of rhythm, a change of pace, a change of perspective. And becoming a little bit more internal here. Unclenching the jaw, unclenching the teeth. Begin to tune in with the rhythm of the breath. Acknowledging the cyclical nature of the breath is always moving, flowing in either direction, in and out. And feel free to stay in this position for another minute or so. And if you'd like to turn this into a twist, just keep the right leg on the bolster or on the ground, wherever it is. Left hand is going to slide out to the side. And then turn the right shoulder back, reaching the right hand out. So just a really subtle twist through the spine, aiming to get the right shoulder close to the ground. If it doesn't quite touch, that's okay. Let's take about 4 more breaths here. Every exhale, maybe allowing the body to soften somewhere a little bit more. A little bit more weight being carried by the earth. And then when you're ready, just start to roll yourself back through your left side body. Before we turn around and do it on the other side, is come into a Sphinx position. Now you can use the bolster here and just slide it underneath the ribs. Elbows come down and you can just adjust the bolster as you need to make this feel really good in the body. Sometimes I actually prefer to do this without a bolster. A little squeeze of the shoulder blades back. Breathing into this subtle back bend. And keep following the breath. If you notice your mind drift away, the breath is a beautiful anchor that allows you to come back to your body, coming back to the state of presence that we can tap into at any point of the day. And let's take about 2 more breaths here. And when you're ready, just open the eyes again if they've closed. Another great time to have a sip of your drink if you have one, before we change to the other side. So moving the bolster to the other part of the body. Left knee stacks on top. It's up to you how far the knee up. Generally, hip height can feel really nice, but you can always bring the knee up a little bit higher if that feels better for you. If you would prefer to find a pillow to bring underneath the side of the head, that can also feel really supportive. And see what happens if you lengthen the breath here. Maybe that's in duration, how long you're breathing for. Maybe it's in volume, how much you're breathing in and out. If you'd like to stay here for the next minute or so, feel free to. If you'd like to turn this into more of a twist, just keep unraveling your left shoulder till it comes on the ground. Left arm could reach out to the side. Aiming to get the left shoulder towards the ground. If it doesn't touch, that's okay. And be kind to yourself. And a simple encouragement is enough. With the breath, encouraging your body to access deeper parts. Noticing if the mind begins to wander. If it does, just acknowledging that path and then very sweetly inviting it back to the present moment. Let's go 2 more breaths here. When you're ready, start to roll yourself back through center. Plant your hands down and then lift yourself up. Now, a couple of different options. If you don't have a bolster, you'll just come into puppy pose the normal way that we do. If you did have a bolster, you might like to play with bringing it underneath your knees to give your hips a little bit of more height. Just know that at any point you can let this go as well if it's not quite suiting what you're wanting to feel today. So you'll start hands under the shoulders, hips over your knees, and then when you're ready, just extending your hands out, dropping the weight of the upper body down to the ground. Now for me, I have quite deep extension through my spine, so bringing the knees underneath my hips just allows me to get a deeper range here. A couple of different options. You can bring the elbows down onto the ground. You could also just stack your hands and forearms, bringing the forehead down. If you would like to find a little bit more activeness, you could press into the hands and lift the elbows off. And if you're feeling really open, you could bring the chin down on the ground, looking forward. I find that's a little bit too far for me, so I like to bring my forehead down. As you inhale, can you feel the ribs kind of expand up and out? And then as you exhale, you might find a little bit more space to drop the heart down to the ground. Go about 5 more breaths here. And start to walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And then as you exhale, let's push the hands into the ground. Cat pose, round through the upper back. Find your way back through center. Shift your knees off the bolster. And we're actually going to sit on the bolster. If you don't have one, you can do this without one. Another great opportunity to get some of your drink. We're going to enter into a forward fold, but before we do, you cross your legs over, just come into Sukhasana, easy pose. Find a really tall spine and close down the eyes. Something that's been resonating with me at the moment is if I gave myself permission, full permission, to see myself as I truly am, what would I see? If I removed all the layers, all the coverings around my heart space, me trying to protect myself from the world around me, what would I notice? And for me personally, in these slow practices, it's a little bit harder to run from yourself, to hide. And slowing down and breathing and opening helps us to uncover what's really going on. Just some food for thought as we move into the next couple of poses. So to counter that back bend with puppy pose, we'll extend both of our feet out in front of us for Paschimottanasana. Your knees might be bent here, your legs might be a little bit longer. Take a deep breath in as you lift yourself up really tall. And then as you exhale, fold yourself forward. Hands might be on the ground. Sometimes I like to bring my hands underneath my calves and even have my knees a little bit more bent than usual as a way to kind of get the belly a little bit closer towards the thighs. And in this pose, we really want to allow gravity to assist us, allowing the weight of the back to drop us forward and down a little bit more. And with every breath, feeling maybe a little bit more space in the spine and the back, and the legs, the hamstrings, the calves to find more depth. Let's go about 5 more breaths here. When you're ready, just start to walk yourself back. Find some length through the spine. Roll out through the shoulders. I'm going to do a similar forward fold, but bring a little bit more focus to the hips. Now you can just slide the feet together for a Baddha Konasana as you kind of fold forward this way. Another option that you might like to take is actually sliding your hips off the bolster. First option is maybe the knees stay on the sides, or you can even maybe bring the feet up onto the bolster. This is a little bit more challenging in terms of range. So just tap into what feels good for you today. Allow the knees to drop down towards the ground, folding forward as much or as little as feels good. And just know that just because you choose a certain pose at the beginning doesn't mean that you need to follow through if that pose doesn't quite serve you anymore. So at any point you wanted to change, if things are getting uncomfortable, or if you just wanted to explore, if it looks completely different to anything that I'm doing, just know that it is all welcomed. Let's take about 3 more breaths here. And then when you're ready, just starting to slowly walk yourself out. This pose has set us up really nicely for the next pose we're going to do, which is our Bakasana, our throw pose. So bring your bolster a little bit more long ways. Now you also might need something else, maybe a blanket underneath here. So if you had that nearby, feel free to bring this in. You can also do this, of course, without the bolster. The first option is just to find a child's pose. So the knees are a little bit wider than usual, dropping the forehead down to the bolster or the mat. As much as you can, try to let the chest and the belly kind of rest on the bolster. If you wanted to try frog pose, you're going to slide your knees out a little bit more. Okay, toes can stay together, or if you wanted the full range of motion with this pose, feet come out wide. Now they land roughly in line with the knees, so you've got 2 90-degree angles. Flex the feet here, that's going to stabilize the ankles. For me personally, this brings up quite a bit of sensation through the adductors, the inner of the legs. And so it's really important to just check in with the breath. Keeping the breath slow and easy so that the nervous system knows it's a safe place to be in, that it's safe to explore. Letting any tension, excessive tension, go within the body. Just notice if you're tensing anywhere. Just allowing that tension to soften, to become a little bit heavier using the breath. Let's go 3 more breaths here. Just start to walk yourself up onto your hands. Actually, it might be easier to slide your feet in first, then walk up to the hands, then slide the knees in. Just move the bolster away a little bit before we head on our back. You can drink a little bit of your hot drink, grab any extra layers of clothing or blankets or anything that you'd like, pillows, before we head down onto our back. So final couple of asanas before Savasana. Slide down and then lift your hips up so that your pelvis is sitting on the bolster. And we'll just start by dropping the knees just very subtly from one side and then to the other side. And then find a moment of stillness. A couple of different options. You could stay in a supported bridge with your feet close to you. You could lengthen your legs out long. Another option is to find a waterfall position, so your feet come up and over your hips. It's a little bit more active because we have to somewhat suspend our hips, our legs in space. If you did have a wall nearby, feel free to put them up against the wall. If there's any other inversion or position you'd like to remain in for just the last minute or two, then go for it. Maybe you stay here for Savasana, or if you wanted to, you could even slide the bolster underneath your ribs. This is gonna be a little bit more of a back bend. Well, the other one was a back bend as well, but a little bit more of a intense back bend. A bit more thoracic spine. And if you are taking this position, I tend to find it quite nice to have my hands above me and my legs out, or you can find Supta Baddha Konasana with your soles of your feet together, or even the opposite, taking the feet wide, knees in. If you would prefer to find just your regular Shavasana with the whole of the body on the ground, welcome that. closing down the eyes. And even if you have like a little towel to put over them, that can really help to kind of block out the light. And just checking in with our senses, noticing if you can smell anything quite apparent in your space. Noticing any sounds around you, not only from my end, but also in your space. Maybe it's the sound of the breath, maybe it's something in the room or outside the room if you're in a room. Noticing if you can taste anything in your mouth. Noticing if you're touching anything, maybe the temperature of the air, the texture of your clothes. Noticing if your skin's feeling dry or damp. And then just letting all of that go, coming back to the breath. We'll just be here for another couple of minutes of quiet. When you're ready, just coming back to the breath. If you had longer to stay here, I would encourage you to take the time to just rest and find a little bit more relaxation. If this is where you'd like to finish your practice, just very slowly begin to move again. And then just starting to roll yourself up into a seat. Take a deep breath in, lift up really tall. Maybe a sigh out of the mouth, let it go. Oh, it feels so good after that. Oh, thank you so much for practicing with me today, everyone. It was a pleasure. Let me know how you found it down in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you wanted to support me a little bit further, then head over to Patreon. We've got some longer classes there as well. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Namaste.